And count it in successfully.
Hello and welcome to a podcast.
It's the I don't know what that means podcast, not just any podcast, Graeme.
True. This is a special podcast because it is the only one that I'm involved in. So
you know what? You're right. It is special. Not I don't know what you do when I'm not around.
I make podcasts. Actually, that's a total lie. I have
an
empire of podcasts.
My God.
No, that's not at all. That's not at all true.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about time and how that is different for neurodivergent folks, and kind of the difficulties inherent in mismatches with that.
Okay. We forgot to introduce ourselves. I think it's the first time ever.
Oh, did we? I thought it was in the intro thing.
No.
Oh, fair enough. Well, who the hell are you?
Hi, I'm Jen.
That's Jen. I'm Graeme.
I'm neurotypical.
And I'm not.
And this is how time affects us. Dun, dun, dun.
Extremely dramatic. I like it. So kind of at the core of this is an ADHD feature. I don't know if it's specific to ADHD, but I kind of think that it is. I don't think that this is something that is common amongst other kinds of neurodivergences. And, as usual, not every ADHD person has this particular feature, but it is pretty prominent. Like, most of us have some variety of difficulty with time. And the common terms that are used to describe it are chronagnosia or time blindness. And the short version is we don't experience or feel or perceive the passage of time.
Why do you get so mad when shows don't start on time then?
Because I'm autistic and they lied to me.
There you go.
Yeah, that is very specifically a thing. Like, the difference is that I am capable of like reading a watch, like I can look at my phone and see that it is such and such a time. And if that is significantly past the point where an event was supposed to start, then like they lied to me. Don't tell me the show starts at 7 if it doesn't start at 7. 7:02 is one thing, but like if we're still sitting around scratching ourselves at 7:15, then you lied to me. You misinformed me, and I don't like that. And also now I have had to wait, which is a thing I'm incredibly bad at. It makes me uncomfortable and I don't like. So,
all right, you guys can see this is going to be a wide breadth of topics, I think.
Features. The thing about chronagnosia that I think is one of the reasons that I think it is one of the more kind of frustrating things from the perspective of like relationships and the way that we relate to other people is that I can't explain it to you. It's like trying to explain what a color looks like. Like I will never see red through your eyes and you're never going to see red through my eyes. And we just sort of agree at a definition or whatever. But like, I can't explain to you in a way that's going to make that kind of like instinctual sense what it's like to not feel time. And vice versa, I don't know what it's like to perceive it. I don't know what it's like to, to feel that. So for me, like my experience of it is just that I can't tell the difference between two intervals. So, I've said this to you before, but for the listeners, like if you put me in a room and you remove any ability for me to track time externally via a phone, a clock, something like that, right? I cannot tell the difference between a 5-minute wait and an hour wait. Those two are the same thing to me because I have no, passage of time from like right now till whenever. And that's such a weird thing, to have to explain. I imagine it's sort of like trying to, I have no idea. There's a kind of visual oddity that some people have where they have a fourth kind of cell that picks up colors. So they're called tetrachromats, and they have the ability, like a quote-unquote normal human eye that has 3 cells can see 16.7 million colors. Tetrachromats see something like 100 million different colors, and so the world looks very different from them. But that's another thing where that's the whole of their experience from the beginning of their end. Like you can't become tetrachromatic. You either are or you aren't. And there is not a way for those folks to like explain it to us, and I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like it is a disability in a lot of ways, but yeah, that's sort of the reality of life for a lot of people with ADHD is just this inability to perceive or to feel time. And so other than kind of the obvious things, I wanted to point out some of the ways that affects particularly me, but probably anyone who has, or almost anyone who has ADHD. And the most obvious one right at the top of the list is I suck at birthdays. I suck at anniversaries. I suck at any kind of thing, any kind of like event where there is that happens at like a particular time, right? So like I know what day your birthday is. I know that for sure. I've never forgotten your birthday.
Can confirm.
However, I don't know how much time there is between right now and when it is your birthday. So like I'm kind of intellectually aware that it's a while from now, right? Before I discovered I was ADHD, I used to say that my problem was I know when your birthday is, but I don't know what today is. And it's kind of the same thing because for a lot of people who have chronic nausea, we don't have a concept of the future. So my whole experience of my life is right now in this moment. um like I know that there is a past, there are things that have happened, and I know that there are things that will happen in the future, but like because I don't feel that passage of time, the progression from past to future, it's sort of nebulous, and I have no like frame of reference to kind of recognize it and understand it. So everything from 10 minutes from now until the end of my life, it's all the same like bucket.
Does that mean you don't experience like the telescoping of time? The like everybody talks about like as you get older, time just goes faster and faster, and it feels like I don't know, 10 years ago wasn't that long ago.
I do experience that. um I think that that's more a factor of like we only tend to make memories out of like relatively novel experiences. You tend to, your brain kind of glosses over the stuff that you've done 1,000 times. And the older you get, the fewer new experiences you have. So your brain just like kind of dumps it all in, like, oh, we've seen this as a bucket. But yeah, I don't know what that feels like for someone who can feel the passage of time. You know what I mean? Like I will absolutely, look at a calendar and be like, what the fuck? It's August 2024. Like it was 2011, 10 minutes ago. And an hour before that, I was six. But in my case, those could be any given arbitrary numbers because I think that when I say like, an hour ago I was six, whatever, I think that I instinctually understand how I'm supposed to describe that, and I just pick the numbers at random. I don't think that that's a sentence that necessarily has like a specific meaning for me personally. I think it's just like I know kind of how I'm supposed to describe it. Um, my conception of the past, my conception of my memories, I know that these memories happened, and I know the relative order in which they happened. Like I remember meeting you, and I know that that happened before, we went out to lunch the other night. Like I know that those things occur in that order, but like I can't tell you how far apart they were. I know intellectually how far apart they were, but like I have no feeling about it. They feel the same to me. Those two events feel like they're the same distance. And so when I think about, if I have a memory of, like I said, we went to dinner the other night, that was 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever, and my 30th birthday, and being seven and going on a hike with my parents or whatever, those all feel the same to me. Those all feel like the same length of time ago because it's no length of time, like it's just stuff that I know happened. My own personal history is almost like world history or like world events or something, like things that I know happened, but I have no personal connection to. My memories are a lot like that. I can tell you the dates of historical battles or whatever else. And, like I know that sort of thing intellectually, and my own memories are the same way. It's just that I have a slightly more visual component to it. So yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah, getting back to like birthdays and anniversaries and stuff. The problem with that, I don't feel the march of time between now and your birthday, and so it doesn't occur to me to be like, oh shit, your birthday is X weeks away. I have to like get on that or whatever. Like it sometimes will occur to me in a flash or if I'm reminded of something, but like the notion that time is progressing towards your birthday doesn't make sense to me. Like it doesn't hit in any kind of like instinctual way that would allow me to like remember that that's a thing that's coming up. And it's really the same for any kind of thing. It'll be, I have to renew my car registration in like the next couple of weeks, I want to say, and so I've had that postcard for 6 weeks or whatever. But like the notion that there is a deadline for something is meaningless because I don't have any sense of the time. The notion that your birthday might be tomorrow or that it might be 6 months away, those feel the same to me. Those are the same thing to me. Whereas I assume for someone like you, as a neurotypical person, you can tell the difference between something is tomorrow and something is in the very far future.
Yeah, I think my anxiety doesn't allow me not to track when things are supposed to happen. That's just my reality.
That's a fair point. And I've gotten around it a lot of ways because if you saw how many reminders and alarms and like pop up notifications and shit I have that say like shop for Jen's birthday or whatever, you would be unhappy with me as a person.
I feel
Um,
like you're projecting. I
Maybe a
I
little.
don't think I'm glad you have them.
There's a I think that there's like kind of a, I don't know, sort of a societal like notion that using aids to get around a disability like that is weak or is undeserving or is bad in some, people who use wheelchairs get shit on because like you use it, you have to use a wheelchair, or like, I can't believe you have to walk with a cane or whatever. This is not really any different. It's just that my disability is in my memory doesn't work, so I have to externalize it and have a million alarms and reminders and everything else. I am getting to the point in my senescence where I probably need to start setting alarms to eat and to like drink water and that sort of thing, which is a really fun way to live a life chained to this horrible beeping monstrosity.
I mean, you say that, but people that like in the cult of Apple Watch, like that's how they live. Whatever.
That's fair. And there is a part of me that is considered like a smartwatch largely for that, to have like a notification that I can't miss because my phone isn't on my person or whatever, like my, wrist
I
just.
mean, people have been living like that forever. Like those dope Casio watches with the little like
True,
calculators. Come on.
true, true. So yeah, so any sort of like future event is hard for me, from like a planning and like a doing stuff kind of perspective, just because I can't sort out the difference between things that happen tomorrow and things that are going to happen in 6 months, which means I can't prioritize them, and so I have to expend a great deal more effort. I have to set up alarms or whatever to remind me like a month out Christmas is coming, just because I have no like sense of it. And I think that that's kind of like a really common stressor probably for a lot of people who have this kind of chronic agnosia, especially if you have it as badly as I do, because like I don't want to be in a situation where we wake up one morning and you're like, "Hi, good morning, it's my birthday," and I'm like, "Oh, is it?"
I feel like you're really stressed out about my birthday.
I mean, it's the specific example that we're talking about here. We don't really have a super well defined like relationship anniversary, or I would stress about that too.
Well, I guess
Um,
that's a blessing in disguise then.
but like that and Christmas in particular, like gift giving holidays are stressful largely for this reason, right? Because I don't know how much time I have between now and whenever the thing is. So it gets put off and I don't forget about it or what. I mean, I do forget about it. It goes out of mind because it's not immediate. But then like the thing happens all of a sudden, it's 2 days before Christmas or whatever. And I'm like, oh God, I haven't gotten you any gifts. Like I feel horrible about it. And I don't want to feel that kind of horrible. So I feel the other kind of horrible where I stress about it, for a long period leading up to it.
So has this been a source of contention in previous relationships?
Very much so. This is one of those places where realizing that I have ADHD has made it actually easier, because now I know that like I'm not just a defective human being. There's like a reason why I have trouble remembering things and why I have trouble with, that kind of thing. But yeah, I have forgotten any number of birthdays and Mother's Days and, relationship anniversaries, things like that. And again, not because like I don't care, sort of is because I just forget. But it's not that I forget that this milestone is important or that it has significance or anything. It's just that it's a time-based thing, and so any kind of time-based thing, I'm already at a disadvantage right out of the gate, just because the platform that this thing is built upon is invisible to me.
Fair.
So yeah, it has definitely been a problem in both in romantic and like platonic relationships. Just forgetting friends things, whether they were like events, performance things, whatever. So yeah, it has been a problem, any number of times. And oddly, like discovering that I have ADHD and that this is not a personality defect or just like a thing about me that sucks, but is an attribute of my existence. Like this is just the way that life is for me. Actually makes it a lot easier to try to do something about it. I think when I was just like frustrated with myself about like, oh, I can never remember people's birthdays, I can never remember anniversaries, whatever, like I just suck. Putting it down in that way makes it very easy to also be like, I don't know what to do about it and I don't think I can fix it because like it's just something's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to go, oh no, I have this like cool brain miswiring thing that I can point to and go, no, it's right there. Like, let me show you a map of my brain and I can point to where this happens. Now it's not just like some nebulous personality defect. It's just the way that I am, the way that my brain works. And this is the life that I have. And being able to kind of look at it in that way makes it so much easier to try and take steps about it and to be like, okay, well, I'm not just an asshole. I actually have a disability. And it's way easier for me to look at something that is a disability and go, okay, that needs accommodations, that needs tools, it needs whatever it might need, so that I can like live around it, as it were, or live with it. But when it was just like, oh, I suck, I just suck. I have this mental image of like people listening to this in their cars and like cheering and pumping their fists in the air. Like, yeah, it really does make such a difference to discover that you're not like the weirdo defective asshole that you thought you were your whole life, and that there's actually like a reason why you are the way that you are, is really wonderful in a lot of ways.
Well, being able to talk about it, I think is, I mean, again, like being honest in a relationship is the most important thing. But like when I think about people that I've been with previously who like honestly probably had similar problems, but like they never cared to like communicate about it or whatever. And then I just would see like the symptoms, I guess, where it's my birthday, but something is in the mail because I couldn't be bothered to order it until yesterday. And it's just like, well, that just kind of feels like you don't give a shit. So that's cool. But like with you, I'm like, all right, like, fine. I understand. And it's different.
That's actually a really good example, because there have been times in previous relationships where someone's gift on the day has been like a picture of the thing that they're going to get next week, because like, you're going to get this thing, and I didn't want you to feel like I don't care, or feel like I put it off because it's not important to me. It is important. It's just that I can't get from A to B in any way. So being able to prepare for B, because it exists outside of A, where A is right now. Needlessly convoluted example there. Anyway.
So here's a fun example of, I don't know if you know how much time has passed, but I don't know how many topics you have prepared because as we've discussed before, I don't make a list about what we're going to talk about, but you do. That's our first 20 minutes.
Yeah, that feels weird to me. I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised to learn that it's been that long. If you had asked me first, my instinct would have been to say something like 5 minutes, but then I would have been like, that's probably not, I would have been like, that's probably not right. So I probably have to I have to guess higher so that I don't look like a complete insane person,
Well, it just felt more direct to tell you because
yeah.
I would like to cover the things you want to cover. So
Indeed. No, there is the list is 7 things, but most of them are actually pretty short. I feel like sometimes our episodes are a little bit more sort of like anecdotal, and like, this is our specific experience. This one very much feels like we're trying to help you. This feels very much like me being like, people out there who are listening, if you are a neurotypical person, or any kind of neurodivergent person who does not have ADHD and who does not does not have chronagnosia and like time issues, this is why your person does that. Like, we're saving relationships, because your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, whatever. It's not that they don't care about you. It's just that your birthday is more than 5 minutes in the future, and they have no way to process that.
There you go, people. We're doing the Lord's work. All right. What's our next topic?
Waiting mode. Yeah.
This is relatable, actually. Go on.
This is one of those we're all the same species kind of points, where I think that this actually does happen to a lot of people. I think that people who are neurotypical but have anxiety issues can really kind of identify with this. But waiting mode is the phrase I use to refer to, I have an appointment this afternoon at 2 p.m. I cannot do anything else. I have to just sit here and wait until it is time for my appointment. In the case of like a chronagnosia time blindness sort of way, I think part of it is because because I have no way to measure the passage of time between right now and whenever I have to like leave for the thing, I get like overly anxious about it, and I'm like, it's better for me not to do anything, because if I start to do something, there's a really high probability that I'm going to get distracted, or the thing is going to take longer than I thought it was going to take to do, because that's another problem we have. Yeah, so it's better to just sit here and like stare at my phone so that I always know what time it is now, and that gives me a frame of reference, until my appointment, whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, I've heard from a lot of people who are not neurodivergent, who do not have ADHD, that like that's
Yeah, I feel, I don't know, I don't feel like I can't do anything before I have an appointment, but I feel like I'm anxious about like being there on time and like whatever I have to have prepared and whatever until the appointment happened. So I think react the opposite way, where I try to just like stack doing tasks that I know I can accomplish. So I'm not like agonizing over how it's going to go or what I need to do or whatever at that particular appointment. Like even this morning, like I woke up and I was like, I think I can do this, 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 and this before we record the podcast because we were gonna like make it a priority to do today. And so like I thought of all these stupid little chores that I could do between like now and when I got up this morning. But like that's even worse if it's like the dentist or like something like any kind of medical appointment. That's why I schedule them for like an ungodly early hour because it's like I'm just gonna wake up, go do that, and then I won't have to think about it the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's really smart actually. For some reason, I never considered trying to do it that way. Um, but yeah, and so that kind of ties into the same thing that we're talking about. I don't perceive time like if I have an appointment in 4 hours, that to me is the same as something that takes 10 minutes. Like the 4 hours and 10 minutes are the same thing to me. It's just it goes into this big empty unmarked bucket that says the future on the side of it. And they're all the same thing. They're all the same distance away. So unless I can be like really certain that I'm doing a task that is a self-contained task with a beginning and a middle and an end, and I
Mm-hmm.
know for sure it takes X amount of time, it's so hard to do anything. And even if I do start to do like a very specific task like that, I'm going to check my phone 5 times in the middle of it because I'm like, you know. And one of the things about chronognosia that comes up a lot is everything takes longer than I ever think it's going to. Whenever we go somewhere, the drive always takes longer time, like longer than I thought it was going to. Um, Recording this podcast, we're up to, I'm going to randomly guess 27 minutes.
That's actually really good. We're at 26:22 when you said that.
Okay, well, that was a totally lucky guess, to be honest. But,
That's why it's called a guess.
like everything takes more time than I ever like project it's going to. And that is kind of a factor in like trying to cram in tasks before before like waiting mode or whatever. A lot of us will like try to schedule out the time before the thing as best we possibly can to make sure that like we do all the stuff that we have to do. So I have an appointment at 2 o'clock today. I know that it takes 15 minutes to drive there, but I also know that if I leave the house at 1:45, inevitably I'm going to be late. There's no possible way that a 15-minute drive actually takes 15 minutes to accomplish.
Yeah,
Because
especially with traffic here.
well, traffic and like anything could happen on the road, but more than that, it's like there's an amount of time required for me to put on my shoes, and there's an amount of time required for me to walk from the car or walk from the door into the car. Do you know what I mean? Like all those little
Yeah,
things.
that's not included in drive time, bro.
Right, but like what I'm saying is that like that overall is the amount of time. So my point here is that if my appointment is at 2 o'clock and I have a 15-minute drive to get there,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot budget 15 minutes for that. So I'll budget half an hour.
Okay.
So I'll be like, I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, okay, my appointment's at 2 o'clock. I have to leave the house at 1:30.
That makes sense.
And in order to leave the house at 1:30, I have to be dressed. And so I have no concept of how long it takes me to put clothes on and everything. So I'm going to just ballpark it on the outside. I have to get dressed at 1 o'clock. And it takes me, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes to shower. But again, I don't know how long time is. So I got to be in the shower at 12:30.
Okay.
I imagine that this is probably relatable to a lot of people who have this problem, but like, yeah.
I think you're just describing people figuring out how long it's going to take them to go somewhere.
Right, but more of it is like we have to give ourselves more time than we think we do. Like I feel like
So you're saying all these estimates and you think they're wrong?
No, I know they're wrong. I know that it does not take me 30 minutes to get dressed. As like a discrete thing, if we include the entire process of getting dressed, right? Like I have to go upstairs, pick out clothes, put them on my body, come back downstairs. That's not a 30-minute process. However, if I try and guess and say that's 5 minutes and I'm wrong, then I've like lost time and now my whole schedule is off. So I have to like over budget.
I see. Because like when I think about doing that kind of thing, I'm like, I feel like I'm pretty spot on with how long it would reasonably take me to do anything because I'm painfully aware of time.
Right. And so that's kind of the sort of the gist of it. And this actually brings me around to my next point. Your ADHD friends, parents, lovers, whomever, they're never on time. They're either 20 minutes early or they're 20 minutes late. And that is because of this same thing. We don't know how long anything takes. And so the ones who are always 20 minutes late try to do things with like exactly what Google Maps says the drive is going to be or whatever. Google Maps says the drive is 10 minutes, so I can walk out my front door at 10 minutes before the thing and they show up 20 minutes late. Your people who are always 20 minutes early are aware of this, and they're doing what I'm doing, where they over budget every single one of their things, because it is better to get to your 2 o'clock appointment at 1:30 and sit there in the parking lot than to show up for it late. And so that is, I think, probably a really common thing. And that's always whenever there's like those like oh so relatable memes about like ADHD and time blindness and everything. That's one of the big ones, is like you're either super early or super late. And if you happen to show up for something on time, it's because you left super early and then like ran into unexpected traffic. Something happened along the way to delay you such that you happen to be on time. But yeah, it's a whole thing. And that kind of feeds around to why I get mad that shows don't start on time, is like the amount of like time budgeting and like bullshit hoops I had to do in order to be here at the time you told me to be here. And now you're not ready to go. I have the same problem when I have doctor's appointments and I'm at my appointment at minimum 10 minutes before my appointment time. And then 45 minutes past my appointment time, I'm still sitting in the waiting room. Like I know that this is always going to be the experience. And the only time that my doctor will not show up 45 minutes late is the one time I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to show up late. That
Yeah.
was the one time that they're going to be on time. But yeah, so, and not to, not to talk shit about doctors or whatever. Like, I understand they have
Whatever. Start the appointment when you say it's going to start. I'll say it. Come at me.
well, I understand that things happen, I will say that there is a difference between the doctor is 7 minutes late and the doctor is an hour late. Those are two completely different things. And
Yeah,
again,
but the
I can't,
problem is you don't know which one you're going to get. And that's not even an urgent care. That's an appointment you've had standing for 6 months. Like,
right.
I'm not mad. You're mad.
Anyway, so the next point is we have difficulty with future planning. And so that can kind of extend out beyond things like birthdays and anniversaries, vacation planning, going on a trip somewhere. That can often be hard because I don't know how much time there is between now and whenever we leave for the trip. There's no immediacy. And immediacy is a super important factor in like motivating an ADHD person. A lot of us function better when like things are on fire. When we have like a bunch of time to get something done, we can't do it because it's not an immediate, whatever kind of thing. And so it's the same thing with, trip planning. But also, I don't have a real solid understanding of like how long the trip itself is going to be. I mean, I know intellectually it's 5 days or whatever, but like I don't know what 5 days means. I don't have any way to like conceptualize like what a day is in terms of how much clothing do I need, how many days worth of meds do I have to bring or whatever. Even when you're on the trip, things like how much time do we have like today between destinations or whatever. We went on a trip last October, and we spent a lot longer driving than I really had intended. I didn't think it was going to be quite so much like time spent driving. And that comes back around to the same thing. Like the drives always take way longer than I think they do. And all that kind of stuff. So like planning things in the future is hard, both because that lack of immediacy, it's not happening in my now, and now is all I have. So like anything that is further out than 5 minutes from now or whatever may as well be 1,000 years from now, for all I have any ability to do anything about it. It's also hard for like longer term things. Retirement planning or like the notion of a 5-year plan is fucking alien to me. The idea that someone can sit down and go, here are all the things that I want to accomplish. Like I could make a list of things that I would love to do in the next 5 years, but then turning that into something that aligns with reality and is like a schedule or like a measurable set of tasks is where you'll lose me. I could say like, 5 years from now, I would like to be skilled in this thing, or I would like to live in this country or whatever. But like the planning part and like all of the steps that come between like deciding that I want to do this and like it being done at the end, that's all. Who knows? I don't understand. So it can be kind of a bummer for like, things like retirement planning. Just like I have no concept of that. There's no immediacy to it. So I'm like, I'm not going to retire anytime soon. I mean, I'm probably not going to retire full stop.
Yeah, we live in post-capitalist hell. No one is. It's fine. I don't know. Don't get stressed out about that.
But yeah, I'll probably work until I die. But if I were not accepting of that as the reality, if I made the kind of money now where that were actually feasible, to have a retirement in however many years, 20 something years, I still would have a lot of trouble conceptualizing the notion that like I need to put money away for that. These kinds of things like the like 401k like deductions and stuff, that's the only reason I have any kind of like money saved anywhere, is that like someone takes the money away from me before I know that I have it.
Relatable. Yeah.
A lot of us are pretty bad with money for the same reason, because all we have is right now and then a whole bucket of the future, and everything that's in the future might never happen. I mean, I could get hit by a meteorite right now. So I would just as soon buy some dumb t-shirt that I'm going to wear 2 times, or like whatever, some little tchotchke that's going to make me happy for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to put it on a shelf and forget it exists. I would rather do that and spend my money on these arguably wasteful things than like put money away for long term, because the notion of that long term has no immediacy to me. It has no value to me, so I can't like conceptualize more than intellectually that like eventually I probably will get old and I'm going to need to survive at during that time. So it's like, yeah, eventually something will happen, whatever, but I could get a new pair of sneakers tomorrow.
Do you find any like positive flip side in the like, I don't know, being mentally present in the now? Maybe not choosing to be so, but like you are.
I mean, my gut reaction is no, it sucks, but
I just spend so much time worrying about the future and agonizing over the past in the now that like, I don't know, being present kind of sounds nice in just that state.
yeah, I'm sure that it is for someone who is also not plagued by depression and anxiety, but I spend a fair amount of my time just in my head. I think the people who really like kind of live in the moment are people who have much more of a connection to their bodies, because being like physically present in the moment is, I think, an important component of being like actually present in the moment, and because I am so divorced from my body, I really very often feel like, there's all those jokes about like we're, ghost driving around meat coated skeletons, whatever. There is such like a dualism inherent in that makes like a gut punch visceral sense to me, because very much I feel like I'm in this body, but I am not this body. I'm not of it. And I think that in order to truly be like kind of present in the moment, whatever, you can't be constantly distracted by the past and the future. And I am constantly distracted. If I spend a lot less time about the past than I do the future. My anxiety is very future focused. It's very like, what if this, what if that, what if not this, what if not that, what if, such and such never happens. And like a lot of my kind of like past rumination stuff tends to be a time when I was 22 and I said something real dumb in front of 3 people, and they've all long since forgotten it, but like it comes out at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm staring at the ceiling and can't get to sleep, and my brain is like, hey, remember that time you said something real dumb in front of 3 people who have long since forgotten you ever even existed? Well,
Yeah.
that one's a hard question, partly because I don't have anything to frame it against. I didn't develop ADHD and suddenly have a different experience. So my experience of like being constantly present, quote unquote, in the moment is just the way that my life has always been. So it probably does have some upsides. I think one of the things that gets overlooked sometimes is how ADHD is poorly named. It's not a deficit of attention. It's kind of the other way around. We have more attention than we can control, which is why it's often characterized as being like easily distractible and like ooh squirrel and all of that kind of shit. So I am so much more aware of my surroundings and my immediate environment. The idea of being like, it's very much like a dog, right? Like a dog doesn't think about its past. It doesn't think about its future. It's just like right now. Is it being fed? Is it getting attention? No, then it's nap time. And I think for a lot of ADHD folks, like on this kind of do work that way. Am I doing something that interests me, that I care about, that has enough kind of immediacy that like I want to be spending time on it? Cool, then I'm like here and I'm awake and I'm focusing on the thing. That's hyper focus. And am I doing something that I don't care about or that has no immediacy? Whatever. Like for example, my job, 60% of my brain just shuts down. Just nap time, whatever. So I think if you're in really like in the moment in the way that people mean it, where you're like paying attention to your surroundings and you're like aware of what's going on around you and everything. Yeah, I think that we tend to be a little sharper than neurotypical folks, because I think y'all get very used to certain things and just kind of tune them out. Like there's a filter in your brain that tunes out irrelevant stuff. Whereas we don't have that. So, again, ooh, squirrel. Like it's reductive and it's sort of annoying and twee, whatever, but like there's a kernel of truth there.
Yeah, it was like the other night we were at dinner, some waitress was getting her ass chewed out, and like I didn't notice at all. Meanwhile, I at some point saw on your face, like, I'm not fucking here anymore. And I was like, what are you looking at?
Yeah. That hit a couple of things that hit like the ADHD, like attention grabby kind of thing, but it also hit me in the autism justice sensitivity thing where I was like, you don't speak to your waitress like that. That's a person.
Nah, she was being an absolute coos.
Yeah. The lady sucked. And I'm still mad that I didn't like call her out, that I didn't actually be like, shut the fuck up. You don't talk to people like that.
I mean, so you guys know, some other dude did. So if you had also piled on, it would not have been a good look.
Well, the other dude did, but he did it in what I perceived to be not the correct way. He was like, "I've got kids here." It's like, I don't care if your kids hear swear words. You don't treat a human being like that. Is my problem. So we came to kind of the same.
The end result was she shut the fuck up, but
she did.
She should have been told she was a coos. Fine.
Yeah, she sucked. And my problem was that again, when she left, she like leaned over and apologized to this family, but didn't say shit to the person that she was abusing.
Yeah, that made me mad, and I said she should apologize to her waitress, not the kids.
Exactly. But yeah, absolutely. Just like being pulled away from things like that is pretty common, which is maybe good. I think that sometimes I will notice things in the environment that maybe you don't, that are important to notice. I don't have a good example, but like, I don't know. I mean, 80% of the time it's like people are walking their dogs and I'm just like, dog, cow, like it's that kind of shit.
It's important.
I mean, it is, but
To be fair, I would be mad if I missed a cute dog or cow, so it's fine.
True. The other thing that I think hits me particularly hard is because I don't intellectually understand that like time passes and things change. Whatever is happening right now, my brain is like, this is the way things are always going to be forever. And so what that means is if I'm in a boring meeting, I want to kill myself because I'm like, this is the rest of my life.
All right, dramatic.
Right. If I'm in a shitty mood, it's very hard for me to like dig out of those kinds of moods sometimes because my brain is just like, this is how we feel now. The sort of preventative to this and kind of the workaround that I've found to it sometimes is if I'm going into something that like I know I don't want to do, it is actually sometimes helpful for me to remind myself that it's like a particular period of time. If I'm going into a dentist appointment or whatever, reminding myself like it's just an hour, like after an hour it'll be over. That is sometimes helpful. There have definitely been times where I'm feeling like less social and less like go outy when you're like, hey, let's go to this thing. And I'm like, it's a couple of hours. You know what I mean? Like it's a finite period of time. And it's not really about the length of time. It's like the reminding myself that there is a finiteness to it and there will be an endpoint to the thing because
it's like there's a famous saying or something. This too shall pass.
Right. But yeah, exactly that. And like I don't kind of like instinctually and intellectually like think of that. So a lot of the time I will be able to kind of like take a step outside of myself. Like typically if I'm in the middle of something that like I don't want to be doing or whatever, comes up sometimes at work when I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do this task. And I have to like stop and go and like remind myself, okay, this takes literally 3 minutes to do. And it's not about the length of time, it's reminding myself that there is going to be an end to the thing. Because if I don't like kind of focus on that and like bring myself to think on that, my default state is to be like, I will be doing this task forever. One of the places where that is actually really super helpful is meltdowns. Meltdowns are awful. We could probably do a whole episode on those. The thing about meltdowns for me, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people, is like, I don't see it coming. It's not really something where there's like any obvious warning signs or anything. Like it just kind of happens and then it's going. And for the first few minutes at the very least, it's entirely like it's a purely emotional state. It's just like fight or flight, like everything is going at 100%. And there's not really a lot of conscious thought. But there comes a point a few minutes into it where like the intensity kind of drops a little bit. I become able to realize that I'm in the middle of a meltdown. And that is the point where it's often helpful for me to remind myself, like, this is a finite thing. This is going to end. And it's usually about the time where I start to realize like I'm having a meltdown, and that comes immediately with like the guilt from like, oh my God, I'm being horrible to people, or I'm, freaking out or whatever for no reason. And being able to kind of take a step out of my head a little bit and go, okay, this is a specific thing. It is a response to stimulus, and it is what happens when you overfill a glass, like there's some spillage and whatever. But more than that, in an hour, I'm going to be okay. This current state that I'm in, this too will pass, right? Like there will be an end to this. And that has been probably one of the most helpful things for me with regard to meltdowns, is like the moment I have enough like clarity to think like a human and not just be like a reacting, terrified animal, is being able to be like, this is going to end. I'm not going to feel like this for the rest of my life, is a really pretty helpful thing. It took me a while to realize that like it wasn't about the length of time, that like telling myself this only takes 10 minutes to do. It's not that the 10 minutes is significant. It could be any amount of time. Like I said, I can't tell the difference. But
it's just that it has an end, right?
Exactly. Being able to reiterate to myself, like, there will be an end to this. This is not the way that everything is going to be. So, yeah, that is helpful. So there you have it. That's kind of my particular issues with time. I have very prominent and like pretty bad time blindness. I think that maybe not everyone has it quite as significantly as I do, but most ADHD people, I think it's one of the most common like presentations of ADHD, both for the hyperactive folks and us inattentive folks. And yeah, it messes up our lives in a lot of ways. Leads to a ton of stress and a ton of anxiety for us. And we promise that we're not trying to be jerks. We just, our heads don't hold stuff sometimes. And again, the platform that a lot of things are built on is not visible to us. So
I'm curious, like you're talking about how like using timers and reminders and stuff is like a newer thing. Have you ever experimented with like doing tasks with like playing an album or a song or something? So you're like, oh, I have this other cue that this much time has passed, and like I know I need to, move on from this, or I have more time to keep doing this.
Not in that way. I know that there are a lot of people who like to do that. I need to fold all these clothes. I'm going to put on one episode of some TV show. That's actually helpful in two ways. Part of it is that there's a finite measure of time that you can look at, but it also like, because we have this overabundance of attention and focus that we can't really direct very well. I've often said I have to be 20% distracted to use the other 80% of my attention. So having an album playing or something, having some music on, having TV on in the background or whatever, something that takes up like just enough of my perception allows me to actually focus on whatever the thing is at hand. And that I think can be really helpful. Just a finite thing, knowing that this is a 42-minute episode. And so, now I know that in 42 minutes, once the credits roll, like I'm done doing whatever. I think that can actually be really helpful for people. I've never tried to do it that way.
Interesting.
It's I should say is a relatively new thing for me, is to like give myself the space and the grace to use reminders and alarms and things like that. Because again, before I think I would just beat myself up about like your memory sucks and you're a douchebag because of it.
All right. Well, you're not a douchebag.
In this particular way.
I said what I said, god damn it. Okay, well, was that your last topic, Graeme?
It was. That was the end of my list.
All right, we did it.
We did.
How long do you think it took?
Oh my god. 56 minutes.
Well, after we edit, probably, but right now it's at 57:48, so pretty good estimate right there. I don't want to be a dick, but it seems like you can estimate time.
One of the things that is really weird about me specifically is that, like, for no particular reason, I almost always know what time it is.
It's actually annoying.
Yeah, I don't have any explanation for that, but yeah, I usually am like really good at like knowing ambiently like what time it is right now. I couldn't tell you how long it's been between like A and B,
Yeah, that's how I can finish a book while you're in the bathroom, I think.
That's an interoception thing more than anything else. But oh, that was the point. So one of the things that I think is actually kind of really interesting is that it has been suggested that the reason that time blindness and chronagnosia is so prevalent amongst neurodivergent folks is lack of interoception. And the theory is that you can feel your heartbeat. So you subconsciously have like a metronome going that just counts out time. And that because you can perceive that, you can feel like kind of the passage of time. I don't. I don't feel my heartbeat.
I'm not sitting here consciously aware of my heartbeat.
I did say subconsciously. That's the thing. It's not. I don't think you guys are like counting your heartbeats, but like
Well,
there's
how do you? I would need to read about this because I don't understand how, like, subconsciously you could measure if someone is aware versus unaware.
no, but I think it's just the thing that like because I as a person with functionally zero interoception don't have any kind of like built-in timer metronome kind of thing, whereas you do. So you're able to perceive the passage of time because there's something in you that, whether consciously or not, like informs your body and thus your brain that like time is passing. I don't have that because I don't have that kind. I don't feel my heartbeat. I don't get messages from anything. So again, part of why I feel like I'm always pretty divorced from the notion that I have this body. But yeah, that may be a large component for time blindness is just that lack of interoception and not having that like running, stopwatch click from your heart. I think it's interesting. I don't know.
It sounds a little like junk science to me.
It's one of those things that feels like it could be plausible. It feels like it's not like straight up fantasy. It's not like, oh well, you guys have a little gnome who lives inside your head and just yells out the seconds as they pass. Like it's bodies are weird and they do weird things, and
Interesting.
neurotypes do have a large physical component, partly in the way that our brains are organized. So well,
I want to see the CT scans. Anyway,
yeah, that's all I had.
that's all you had.
This is going to take so much editing. God, this episode.
This one's on you.
I know.
I guess I just want to say we're curious to hear what else you guys want to hear about. So we have our little outro where you can email us, write us some reviews, bug us on Instagram.
Tell your friends. We have become used to the fame and the adulation of the millions who already listen, but it's never enough. So tell your friends, sit them down and force them to listen to it. That is a good recommendation that we have.
Drunk with power,
that
you
is
are.
That is the official, I don't know what that means, recommendation is to duct tape your friends to the wall and force them to listen to our podcast until they pass out.
Which could take 1 minute or 1 hour, according to Graeme.
Yeah, no, I have.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. We will chat again soon. As my cartoon representation, Tina Belcher, once said, goodbye, audience. You can find us on social media on Instagram at idkwhatthatmeans.podcast. Or if you happen to be on Blue Sky, idkwhatthatmeans.bsky.social. Or you can contact us by email at idkwhatthatmeans.podcast@gmail.com.
We hope you have fun or learn something. Probably not both, but hopefully both.
Probably not both.
Anyways, thanks for listening to I Don't Know What That Means.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.